Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure and honor of having Mr. Jason Hennessey, the guru on SEO and online marketing.
Thank you, Ken. I'm honored to be here, man. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, but for those, which shouldn't be that many that don't know you, pretty much everybody knows you. You're pretty much a legend. Tell us your story. I mean, how did you get to be, this conglomerate that you are now?
Yeah, just kind of paying your dues over time. I think I was at one of the first or second Pilmas that you had, and I was just just another face that kind of showed up. And then just over time, just continuing to to do well with your clients and build case studies, and then they tell some of their colleagues, who then tell some of their colleagues, and then then just kind of investing into growing the business and putting systems and processes in place and learning from all of the failures that we made many years ago and making sure that we're not making the same failures for the clients that we are working with today, right? So, but it's been an amazing journey. I love the industry. I'm so passionate about it. I wrote the book Law Firm SEO last year this time, which came out, and it was it was me just kind of giving back. You could read that book and not hire me or anybody else and figure out SEO on your own. Or if you want somebody to do it for you, there's certainly many good options that, come to your conferences, and we're just one of them. So,
yeah. Well, most lawyers just don't want to deal with it. I mean, I'm one of them. I mean, you got to leverage your strengths, and technology. Mm-hmm. Technology is definitely not my strength. For sure. It just isn't. That's why I talk to guys like you, try to figure it out. So
sure.
I want to talk about the new Google algorithm change, or whatever you call it, update, because it sounds like, what little bit I read, it sounds like it's going to be a major deal. I mean, can you kind of tell us what do you see it's being, and how's it going to affect, what we do, lawyers, as far as our website?
Yeah, so they're calling it the helpful content update, and they're saying that it's gonna, be a pretty big update, similar to like a Panda or Penguin that happened, many years ago, where there's a really big shakeup within the algorithm. As far as like law firms, should you really be concerned? Maybe, right? I'll put an asterisk on that. I think what Google is really trying to do is, they're trying to kind of stop big companies like a Forbes, right, that writes a vacuum review, right, and all of a sudden, because Forbes is such an authoritative website that writes a vacuum review, because sites like Forbes and Washington Post and USA Today, there is an affiliate model to their business, right? That's how they make a lot of money, is by kind of posting reviews and talking about things naturally within a news story. And then they link out to the product and they make affiliate commission on that kind of stuff, right? I think that's really what they're trying to do. Like, is like a Forbes like the right place to kind of look for a vacuum review? I don't know, right? So that's part of the update that I think is about to come out. But the other part is, at the very early stages of Google, there wasn't a lot of content that was being published and indexed, right? And as Google continued to get more market share and more market share and more market share, what does that mean? They have to have a lot of databases, right, all over the country to kind of store, right? Because when you're doing a search on Google, you're not doing a search on Google like in real time. You're doing a search on a cache of Google, right? It's like their carbon copy of the internet, really, is kind of what you're searching for, right? And in order to do that, Google has to basically store, all of this data into data centers, right? And so nowadays with like AI, people are using like bots and AI to basically write content, and it could fool me and you, right? And in some cases, it was fooling Google. And I think that they really had to look at that, because as more people just use AI to publish content, that means Google has to have more data centers, right? And so it's really, it's very expensive for them to just store all of this AI generated content. So they don't want to reward, people for doing this by basically giving them good rankings when they're just basically using bots to kind of create this AI generated content, right? So, I'd say if you are a lawyer and you are experimenting with AI, like, yeah, you might be in trouble. That's something to look at. But I would caution you, if you're a lawyer and you're using AI content, you probably have bigger problems with ethic boards and things like that. So you shouldn't be doing that. Let's just say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know there's some software, we were talking about it at our PILMA mastermind last time in New York. And, a lot of lawyers said, they'll catch you. And then another lawyer said, what I'm doing is I'm letting it create it. Then I'm going through and I'm editing it. And then I'm putting it through Hemingway
Copyscape. Or Hemingway, yeah.
To get it down to about a 7th grade level. And then I'm publishing it. He says, what do you think? And of course, I didn't know. I mean, what do you think about something like that? You think that's still iffy, isn't it?
For the amount of time that it takes to do that, rather than just bring somebody in to write content for you that can interview you and actually get your tone and your voice, right? I would be a fan of kind of doing it that way. Where a lot of the AI sites are doing very well are basically, just mass publication. Like all of a sudden, boom, you're building a website with just, millions of pages, like really quickly because you're using AI. And then you just basically do it until Google stops letting it work, right? And so bam, all of a sudden 6 months later, you're getting 3 million, because there's a lot of case studies. There's people in the SEO industry that basically will push the needle as far as they can push it, right? And they just mass produce thousands of pages per day, thousands of pages per hour, right? And basically they're doing is they're just taking clones of other websites and they're rewriting the content using AI, and it looks like all unique content about the same subject. And so they're, boom, next thing you know, they've got 3 million pages that's indexed on Google, and their traffic is going like this, like this, like this, until an update like this happens, right? Where meanwhile, they've already collected a lot of money based on affiliate traffic and AdSense and whatever else that they're doing. But there comes a point where it's like, okay, it stopped working, right? And so now I've got to figure out what's the next thing that I could try to do to exploit, right?
Right.
So, I mean, there's a strategy for it. But again, if you're a lawyer in a market and you're building a business and you're building a brand, like, you shouldn't be experimenting with this kind of stuff, not with your business.
Yeah. Yeah, because you were sitting there talking, they don't want all this content, but I've always said, or it's always been taught that, hey, that's what they're looking for, is good, relevant content. But I guess they just don't want it by AI, by artificial intelligence. They want it written by you or somebody in your
That's
office.
right.
It was kind of, when you said it, first thing hit my head, well, I always thought they wanted more content, but I guess they want good content.
They truly want content that will satisfy the intent of a search query, right? So if you're listening to this podcast, like, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is go and look at your website and read your own content, right? Click around pages and read your own content. And if after what you read, like, if you're not interested in hiring yourself because of what's out there on your website, well, then it might be time to kind of rewrite the content, right? You probably have some FAQs that are on your website that somebody else wrote, right? If somebody's doing a search for that FAQ, does it truly kind of satisfy the intent of somebody doing that search, right? So that's really it. And I think if you follow that approach, like, you really don't have anything to worry about when Google comes out with these algorithmic updates, right? As long as you're not kind of manipulating the search results, like by leveraging the new SEO tactic that's working, you could sleep well at night, just knowing that you're not really going to ever just kind of like abruptly lose your entire business. Yeah.
So, I've always heard relevant content and good quality backlinks. Is that still the deal? I mean, it's not quantity, it's quality. A long time ago, you had these backlink forms and all this. I mean, I'd see lawyers, I get on SEMrush and I just let this, play around and snoop, and I see where, I got 2 million backlinks, you know, but they're all
Mm-hmm.
1,998,000 of them are bullshit. I mean, you know, they're nothing. They don't mean anything. They're not even close to what you're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the deal?
It is. I think Google has gotten a lot more sophisticated about understanding popularity signals and relevance signals from backlinks. Again, there's a lot of ways that you can continue to exploit that, and there's a lot of tactics that you can use that will push the needle higher and quicker, and they do work. But again, once you start to engage in those type of activities, you're at the mercy of Google when they come out with another, Google update, where all of a sudden, boom, you lose a lot of the traffic that you worked so hard to build again, right? So I don't ever encourage any lawyers to, engage in building links just for the purposes of artificially increasing their popularity on their website. Like, I think you just really need to be doing what other lawyers are doing. What can you be doing in your community to get links naturally? Like, for example, for me, right? What do I do? What's a competitive advantage for me as a digital marketing agency? Well, for one, I write for a lot of sites, right? So I contribute for Forbes, Newsweek, Rolling Stone magazine, right? Entrepreneur magazine. I write for a bunch of legal trade shows as well. Like, I write for the National Law Review. I write for some of the industry sites like Search Engine Journal, things like that, right? And the reason why I do it is not so much because I'm trying to manipulate anything. Like, I truly feel that after 20 years of being in business, I can really kind of give back to those that are interested in learning whatever I have to share, right? Like, there's no game to it at all, right? And so that's really what I think, law firms really have to do, right? And like what you're doing right now, Ken, this is a great way of building links here, right? You're interviewing me. You're going to publish this. I'm going to share it among, my thousands of followers. You're going to share it among your thousands of followers. People are going to watch this. They're going to get good insights, possibly take action, share it, link to it, right? This is just a very natural way of kind of building links, right? So you need to figure out how can you do more of this.
Yeah, I think so. Saying that, we've got a couple of lawyers that now have started doing their own podcasts. I mean, do you think that's a good thing? I mean,
I think it's a great thing. Even if it's not even if it's not going to be wildly successful and you're going to make a lot of revenue because of the advertising that you're going to sell on it, that's the wrong approach. Like, even if you're just doing the podcast because it's basically holding you accountable to having a call with somebody every single week, you're going to record the call, you're going to get the call transcribed. You're taking information and insights out of your brain and out of somebody else's brain, and you're actually putting it together into this great video that you'll share, which gives people a sense of your personality when they come to your website and they see you talking about things that are important in your industry. But then you get that transcribed and that becomes a bunch of text content as well that goes on your page, right? That's all just natural way of doing SEO, really. I mean, that's an SEO strategy. Yeah,
yeah,
it really is, if you do it right.
Yeah, I've had people ask me about advertising, but I said that's not why I created this. I created this.
No,
I learn a lot by doing this, talking to people smarter than I am. I mean, I just do. I mean, and I try to just ask the questions. The company I'm doing it with, they give me this list of questions I should ask, and I never use it because I just want to be like a lawyer. I kind of do enough masterminds and get enough questions from lawyers every day. I know what's on their mind. I mean, I know what's worrying them. So I just try to, I mean, I've already had 2 lawyers. Well, you know anything about this new algorithm? I said, no, but I said, I'm talking to a guy today that'll know. I said, and we'll find out what the deal is. I said,
Yep. One thing I will say, Ken, though, I just want to be clear about this. So when you write content and you publish it onto Google, you don't know how well Google is going to react to the content that you publish, right? Google might experiment and put you in position number 2 shortly after you publish it, but based on the user signals, right? So when somebody does a Google search for that particular query and they have you at number 2, and then somebody clicks, from Google over to your web page, right? And they're on the page and then they only spend 7 seconds there and then they go back to Google. that's a signal to Google that says that you might not be satisfying the intent of somebody that's doing a search. And if enough people do that, then eventually you're going to get pushed down, right? So the goal is to basically publish content on your website, but then you want to go back, maybe like 3 weeks later, a month later, and see how well is the page performing. And then from there, you want to go in and you want to basically make adjustments to the page by revamping the page to give you a better chance of kind of ranking a little bit higher. And there's third-party tools that kind of will help you see that. Like there's a tool called Surfer SEO. There's another tool called Phrase.io. There's multiple tools that will help you analyze the page so that it's optimized a little bit better. That's not really AI per se. That's just really basically, trying to make the page a little bit better so that it satisfies the intent of the search query.
Yeah. So we're talking about backlinks and we're talking about content, but what do you think about the videos deals now? I mean, it seems like video is everywhere I talk, people say videos, that's going to be the new search engine if it's not already.
I hope so, man, because if you see behind me, I put a lot of money into video. This is our studio here in Hollywood. So I am a big believer in video content. That's basically how people consume content now, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, Reels or YouTube, right? So video is extremely important. I think video also keeps people on a page a little bit longer, which helps, SEO from the user signal as well. So there's so many advantages to video that I think if you're not doing it, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your business.
Yeah, I agree. Ken Hardison here, president and founder of PILMA, Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association. I want you to mark your calendars for September the 7th through the 9th. We're going to have a internet boot camp for lawyers. We call it the Lawyers Internet Domination Boot Camp. And it's going to be virtual, so you don't have to travel. 3 afternoons from 12:30 to 5:30. And if you can't make one of the sessions, you'll get full recordings of every speaker. So here's just some of the samples, some of the things we're going to be covering. Luke Russell is going to talk to you about how to win in the new era of Facebook advertising and how to target when Facebook is regularly reducing targeting options. Seth Price is going to talk to you about the 5 things you need to be doing in SEO to make more money. And I'm going to be talking to you about how to protect yourself and your law firm from cybersecurity attacks. Did you know that they have grown from over 67% in the last 3 years? Tanner Jones will also be talking about how to dominate your local market with agile social media marketing. And we have a special keynote, Dennis Yu, who is the godfather of how to test your Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram ads on $1 a day. It's a secret that he has shared with me and our PILMA friends, and now he's going to share it with you. So if this sounds like something you're interested, go to pilma.org/internet bootcamp or go to the end of the notes of this presentation. Thanks. That was something we were actually talking about in a PILMA meeting. I said, we used to have a video on our homepage. Then we took it off. We had somebody come in and redesign it. They took it off and our bounce rate went up. And we have a weekly meeting and we go over all our analytics maybe we do it too much, but I'm just kind of, I like to look at the numbers, see if there's some kind of trending one way or the other, hopefully trending up, not trending down, except bounce rate. I want that trending down, right? What is acceptable on bounce rate now? What would you say be a good bounce rate? You'd be okay if your client had a bounce rate of or lower.
I think, to be honest, with law firms, I don't think you should really be, bounce rate is something you should certainly be looking at. I don't think it's something that you want to put too much stock in, because the way in which Google determines bounce rate, it's basically as if somebody actually ends up on another page on your website, right? So, so if I go to your let's say I do a search for Orlando car accident lawyer, right? And I'm on the page and there's a video and I'm watching the video and I'm on the page and I pick up the phone and I call your firm, right? I haven't went to any other page and I spend 20 minutes on the call, you're doing intake. And then eventually I get off the call and you guys signed me as a client. And then all of a sudden later, I'm still on the page and I close out. Google determines that as a bounce because you didn't go anywhere else on the page. Even if you spent 20 minutes on the page, Google still shows it as a bounce. So, now if you're an e-commerce website and the goal is to get them from a product page to a checkout page, bounce rate is extremely important. You should be paying a lot of attention to that, right? But for a law firm where there's a direct response, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, somebody said, hey, Jason, I really want to this is one of our clients. He's like, Jason, this is ridiculous. I'm talking to a consultant. He said that our bounce rate is like 70%. It needs to be lower. I'm like, okay, if you want me to lower your bounce rate, that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to take your phone number off of the homepage and it's going to be on the contact us page. And he's like, well, why did we do that? I'm like, well, you got to get somebody to click over to your contact page, basically, which will lower your bounce rate, and then they'll call you, right? And he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, that's my point, right? You know what I mean? We want people to actually call you and not click around the website, right? So,
and I guess that's why I've seen a lot of websites where they'll have the, I guess you call it interlink or whatever, like it's blue, you click on it and it'll take you to another, like the motorcycle section.
Exactly. Hyperlink.
Hyperlink. Yep. Is that what they call it? Hyperlink? Okay.
Yep.
So I guess that's still a good strategy then.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I would encourage, you know, this is, I think, where a lot of lawyers are missing opportunity too, is so when somebody fills out like a form submission on your website, I think where people are missing the opportunity is nobody pays attention to the thank you page. Right. So like somebody fills out a form submission and boom, they end up on a thank you page and all it says is thank you. Right. Yeah. I think you're missing out on a huge opportunity. So like what we advise our clients to do is to record a video, like explaining like, hey, thank you so much for, you know, filling out a form submission. Let me let you know what's going to happen next. Right. You know, somebody from our firm is going to call you in the next 24 hours. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Right here. You can meet our intake team. Right. You know, this way you stop them from calling another law firm or filling out another form submission, right? So you can totally, you know, improve the experience by just putting a video on the thank you page.
That's smart. That's real smart. And listen, I was putting together a presentation for our internet boot camp, and I pulled down your study. I know you do it every year. You did it for the last 2 years. And when I was looking at your stats, I got flabbergasted, man. I mean, actually, I got sad. All these lawyers, tell our listeners about this thing you're doing about the response rate, because it saddens me.
It saddens me too.
Because there's so millions and millions and millions of dollars being wasted.
Yeah, so let me tell you the genesis of that. We work with a lot of clients. Some of them are very high volume firms. And so we were on a call with one client. He's like, you know, I don't get it, you know, because you're showing me that the traffic is increasing. We're seeing that the leads are increasing, but we're just not converting as higher, right? The conversion percentages aren't kind of growing, and I'm concerned. And I'm like, well, that's really strange, right? And so we just basically took it upon ourselves to just fill out a form submission with like a real lead, right? Somebody that went in an ambulance and had, you know, from an accident and was injured, went to the hospital, right? Filled out a real form submission. And then we waited for like 10 minutes. Okay, great. Let's see if they call us back, right? They didn't call us back. Then we waited for the rest of the day, still didn't get a call back. And then 2 weeks later, we still didn't get a call back. And we're like, man, like if this is like such a very buttoned up firm that will just instantly spend another $50,000 a month on marketing, you know, what's the issue? Why aren't they responding? Why aren't they getting back? And so I was very concerned about that. And so I'm like, you know what? And then we exposed it to this attorney and he's like, oh my God, I didn't even know. And I know you had something, right? That was like ghost calls, right? You know, so you were kind of ahead of the curve on this too. And so I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, I wonder, you know, if this is a big firm that's buttoned up with a lot of people, systems, and processes, I'm like, what does it look like for the rest of the industry? And so I'm like, let's do a study where we reach out to like 1,000 law firms across the country, right? At the same time with the same lead. And let's just basically see like what that looks like. And so the first study in last year, it was like 46% of the firms that we reached out to didn't even get back to us at all, right? So what does that show you? And then this year, I think it was a little bit lower. I want to say it was like in the 30% that didn't get back to us. And then what we then do is we reward the firms that actually got back to us within 10 minutes or less, right? And then we also send trophies out to all of the firms and their intake teams of everybody that not only got back to us, but they texted us, they emailed us, they called us, right? So we're measuring like how responsive are they in follow up with us. And there was 150 firms, I think, that did all of that within like, you know, they basically did all of the actions of getting back to us. And so it's published on Hennessey.com, and then there's a button that says Insights at the top of our website that has all those studies. Yeah.
You know, I'm on a study. I just do it for my masterminds every month. We used to do ghost calls. Now, but what we've found is kind of got them straightened out on that. You know, they're doing a lot better. But now it's online, and it's over 50%. It takes them over an hour to get back with us. I'm saying, you know, I asked them how much you spend on marketing. Well, I spend $1 million a year. So you're probably wasting a third of it.
You totally are. Yep, we're on the same page there. Yep.
I mean, you're and not even just wasting it. Look at the income that you're missing. This has been going on forever, Jason. I've been doing consulting work for 13 years. 13 years ago, it's going on. It still goes on today. If I want to, I always know that 99% of the time, I'm going to prove my worth to a law firm just by going in and working on their intake, because even the great firms, they got the right processes, they got the right procedures, but they got no accountability. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can have the best SOPs in the world, but if you don't have implementation, you don't have accountability. That lawyer said, I didn't know. He didn't know because he didn't have any way of structure or of accountability to somebody checking behind these things.
Oh yeah,
you know? It's sad. Yep. It's sad. I mean, but that's always been. I talked with Mickey Love about it one day on one of our other podcasts. He says, "Yeah, you always know that if everybody's just got the greatest firm in the world, you still can help them there because nobody. It's like playing golf. You never master it, even though you might know it. You know, the people change. People have bad days. You just, you know, it's. But anyway, I'm on my soapbox. Shut up.
Yeah, but you know what, though? It's so important, right? Accountability is important, but also recognition is important. And so we took our study to the next level, right? Because like a lot of times, like these intake, you know, the leaders of intake departments of companies and managers and stuff, like they're the unsung heroes of the firms, you know, in a lot of cases, right? And so we just thought, you know, a lot of the marketing people get like a lot of the pats on the back, right? Of kind of making the phone ring and branding and this and that, right? And TV and Golden Gavel Awards and all that other stuff. Like, what about the intake people? Somebody needs to recognize them when they do a good job, right? And so because we did the study, like I took money out of my own pocket, right? You know, it cost us probably like $20,000 a year just to actually make trophies, right? And send them out to all of the, you know, the firms that have good intake. And it just like, I get so much reward back, you know, not in terms of like financial reward, right? But just so much reward in like seeing like an intake manager sitting at their desk holding that award with the recognition that they deserve because they actually did a good job, right? Yeah. So that's very rewarding to us here at Hennessey as well. Yeah.
We talked about that. We've got maybe about 5 more minutes, but I do want to touch on, you know, they had this other update with Google My Business in the last 12 months. I don't remember when it was. I know you know exactly when it was, but
the vicinity update. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For the Google Maps. And so a lot of our lawyers at Pilma are going out and setting up satellite offices, and I mean, real offices. I mean, you know, not the
virtuals.
Not the virtuals. They're going out and hanging a shingle, you know, got an office, might not be staff, or it might be staff, but the deal is they appointments only, and then they're going out and getting and claiming it and trying to get reviews on that site. You know, what do you think? About that? You think that's a good move or not?
I think it's a good strategy if you execute it correctly, you know, and there's a lot of, you know, executing it correctly, right? You know, an asterisk there. So what I mean by that is, you know, especially if you're like a big billboard law firm and you're putting billboards up in every corner of, you know, of an area or a market, what if you just took half of that or 25% of that billboard budget and you basically started to put offices in a lot of the smaller cities, right? You know, because what happens is vicinity update, they basically took in the rein as far as the amount of coverage that you would basically get just by basically having a Google My Business listing. And it wasn't just like our clients. Like I think everybody in the industry, their inventory struck by about 25% because of Google making this update, right? You probably heard about it in a lot of your mastermind groups, right?
Absolutely.
And our phones were going off the wall. And so is, you know, some of our competitors that work in our industry. And it was nothing that we did wrong. It was just Google basically made this adjustment, right? And so, you know, whereas if the range was a 10-mile radius, they brought it down to a 4-mile radius of the office, right? So my recommendation is if you take some of the TV budget or billboard budget and just kind of put it into finding small little, satellite offices where you actually staff it. Maybe you can staff it with an intern, right? That basically works from there and writes content for you, or you staff it with, a junior person that does some things with marketing, whatever, right? But you have to have somebody actually there, because that's one of the things that Google will, suspend it if it's not an active law firm. But, if you just start out setting up a bunch of these now within that pocket, right? You'll start to get phone calls, because when people type in words like car accident lawyer, personal injury lawyer, right? Like you'll actually show up, because, it's like a pizza place, right? You don't have to travel 20 miles to get pizza. When you do a search for pizza, it's going to show the pizza shops that are right in your backyard, right?
Yep.
Well, you want to be the law firm that's right in people's backyards. And so that's the strategy to do that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And that's a good point, that it needs to be staffed. So I want to finish up. I want to go back to the videos. So you spent a load of money, because you got it right in Hollywood, right? You got this big ass studio. I mean, and I'm looking at the stuff. I mean, you spent a fortune. I mean, you got a lot. I've seen some of your equipment when you were doing your grand opening. You've got very expensive equipment. So you're betting on that this video is going to be the deal, right?
Yeah, I'm all in, and I see it firsthand. It works, right? Like I make video content. Sometimes there's different strategies for different content. Like if you follow me on LinkedIn, like I post a video every single day, right? And it's nothing big. It's just maybe like a minute and a half, but it's top of mind video content, right? So every single day, people that follow me will potentially see a video of me just kind of talking about, something, business, my family, my t-shirts that I make, right? Whatever the case may be, but it's all top of mind video content, right? So, it's so interesting, because I've been doing this for like 2 years. Like I'll get people that I worked with like 6 years ago that will reach out to me just because, oh, Jason, by the way, I thought of you recently, because I need some help with SEO. Well, what made you think of me? Like, you didn't just come to mind. It's just because you see me on LinkedIn every single day, right? And so that just needs to be a part of your strategy. And I love like lawyers that are kind of having fun, because like lawyers have the image of like, hurt in a car wreck, call 222-2222, right? We're here to fight for you, right? Whatever the case may be. Like, I think, the younger generation don't want to see that. They just want to see people actually like being themselves and being human beings and just kind of talking naturally. And I think, video is the way to do that. And you don't need millions of dollars in equipment. Like I'm doing this because we're doing like Hollywood level stuff here as well. Like, but like this little box right here, right, does the job. I mean, this is better.
I just did 7 1-minute videos before we did this. And I took my iPhone and set it up there vertically, and had me a little light that I put on top of it, little mic I spent about $30 for, and just knocked them off. Got a big green screen that I can pull up. It pulls up like a accordion. Put it back down.
And just don't be too critical on yourself, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be polished, right? You just have to take action and do it, right? Yeah, that's just it.
Absolutely. I like your shirt, progress over perfection.
I love it.
I got to make my shirt. I always tell my staff, good is good enough. Don't have to.
That's exactly right.
This
has been my enemy for years. Mm-hmm.
Good is good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Listen, anybody wants to get up with you, contact you, what's the easiest way?
It's Hennessey Digital is the agency, and you can reach us at hennessey.com, and let me know, and hopefully I'll see you on the virtual boot camp that's coming up here soon. I'm super excited by that, and I've got a great presentation that I think people are going to get a lot of value from.
But we always do. You really give great content, so thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.